Hello and welcome to the Nursing Mother's Room. I am your host, Regina, and I am so glad you're here. No matter where you are in your journey into motherhood, I hope you know that you're not alone. So welcome to the Nursing Mother's Room. Well, Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a good Christmas and New Year's. As you can see, for those of you who have been here for a while, you can see that we are not sitting on my big old comfy couch. Today, we are sitting at the dining table. For those of you who don't know, I have a little small Etsy shop. And on my Etsy shop, I have a bunch of like little clay ceramic things that I make. And I have a new order for a little Miffy. If you guys know what that is, I'll put a photo of that up there. Miffy the bunny. I make little ceramic like glasses holders, trinket trays and stuff. And they have honestly, this past year, have been so stinking popular that I have just been getting so many orders for them. So today we are just gonna sit and craft and talk. So I know it's been a while. I know that there are so many of you who are wondering, where the heck have I been? What's been going on? Most of you know that I'm getting ready to have baby number 2. And so as we do that, it has just been a crazy journey. We made it through the holidays, which has been amazing. And I have begun fully nesting. And so as we are in transition, getting things ready, we are now just shy of 2 months away to having this baby. So it is going to be a fun time. And yeah, so today we are just going to kind of multitask a little bit, get some things done, kind of sit, relax. I don't know if you guys make New Year's resolutions. I very much don't normally. I just kind of feel like when I make a New Year's resolution, I kind of set myself up for failure because I'll continue to do something for a week, maybe 2, and then I'll kind of beat myself up about it that I haven't continued or followed through with stuff. So I have kind of made the resolution to not make resolutions. And with that, I feel like I have just been at more peace mentally. I'm not as hard on myself if I don't continue or finish something. And I also just give myself the freedom to change my mind of doing something that I want or don't want. And obviously this year, I know people try to do goals to be healthier, lose weight, things like that. I obviously am not in either one of those ballparks currently, as I am growing a baby that is now, I think they said she's almost 3 pounds already, which is exciting, but I am very much nervous that she is going to be very, very big. My son, when he was born, he was born at 35 weeks, but he was 6 pounds, almost 7 pounds already. So they said even for a preemie, he was still pretty good size, which I was very grateful for since he came so early. But also was like, dang, if he would have gone to his due date, he probably would have been like almost 8 or 9 pounds. So very grateful we got him out early. But yeah, I know it's been a while. And so today I really just wanted to sit and chat with you guys and kind of update you on everything. And I think the last time that I did a solo podcast, we either had just announced that we were having a girl or shortly thereafter. But yes, baby number 2 is a girl. And I knew from the start that when we got pregnant that this would be a girl. And I kid you not, I started having dreams back in March that we had a little girl. And it was like I was running around with Bub, but I'm holding this little girl in my arms. And I'm like, where did she come from? Who is this? And then in around July, we found out that I was pregnant. And I was like, yep, I think that's going to be a girl. So very, very excited, very grateful. But I also am very nervous, if I'm being honest. Since I was younger, I always knew that I wanted to be a mom, but I didn't want to have girls, if I'm being honest. And the reason why I didn't want to have girls is because I very much grew up with other girls, and I know the mean girlness and the cattiness and the pettiness and all the stuff that comes with being a girl is not fun. And I know the things that I went through growing up with people in my life, and I never wanted that for my daughter. I never wanted to be afraid of her having low self-esteem, having body image issues, having to deal with insecurities because of boys or peers. And I know that boys go through their stuff too, don't get me wrong, but I think for girls it's just at a whole different level sometimes. And I think because of that, it can be very scary. And like I said, I know what I went through growing up, and I was always like, I really don't want girls. And it's funny because my grandmother, a couple years before she passed away, she looked at me one day and she's like, you know what? Your first baby's gonna be a girl. And I was like, Grandma, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't let it be true. And thank God I had a boy first. But I just always was very terrified of having a girl because girls can be mean. And the stuff with girls just sometimes doesn't end. And I very much went through a lot growing up, and even from high school into college. Once I got to college, I was very much like, I'm over the high school girl drama. I'm over all the junk. I just want to focus on school, and I want to get out. And that's what I did. And I graduated with my bachelor's a year early because I was like, I'm over this. And, I had friends in college and, made some really good friends that I'm still friends with today, which I'm very grateful for. But I also had to have the maturity to walk away from a lot of pettiness and different things and stuff. And so I have just been very terrified for a girl. And I know the things that my parents instilled in me with waiting for marriage and waiting to waiting for the Lord to bring the right person to marry and to be with and to be a husband and a spouse and a father. And I knew that that's what I wanted to wait for, and that's what I wanted to do. And so it was really hard. And then again, the comparison thing for girls, like you don't look like certain girls, or you're not as skinny as certain girls, or you don't have the curves like other girls, or just whatever it is, like trying to find yourself while also trying not to just please other people. And I think for me, I ruffled a lot of feathers with guys in high school and college and stuff because I just knew there were certain things that I was like not going to compromise. But that came with knowing who I was and knowing who the Lord was to me at a very, very young age. And I think that was something my parents did really well when we were younger, was help us to focus and to keep our eyes on the Lord and what He wanted for us. And I think because I knew that at a young age, I definitely didn't want to stray from that. But even in that, I still dealt with a lot of stuff. I still dealt with, having to walk away from certain situations and certain people and, thinking, oh, this guy like really likes me. Maybe this is the one I'm going to marry, stuff like that. And then him turn around and sleep with somebody else because I was waiting for marriage and I wasn't going to have sex with anybody beforehand. And so it was like really detrimental in some areas. And I know growing up, I very much was insecure about having glasses and braces and my hair looking a certain way and, trying to fit in with people. And, so when I got older, the first thing I did was get Invisalign, and then I got LASIK surgery on my eyes. These are just blue light glasses to help protect my eyes from screen time and stuff like that. But it was really like a struggle for the longest time. But I just had to keep reminding myself, even in those situations, that the man that I was going to marry was not going to make me compromise. And I will say this to any young woman who is looking for a husband or in the season of waiting and stuff. If you have non-compromising goals or things that you want for yourself or in your life, or if you want to wait for marriage, if you don't want to wait, or whatever the case may be, if you have somebody that is pushing you past those boundaries, even while they're saying they're a Christian or they're a man of God or whatever, run. Because the man who truly loves you and is truly seeking the Lord is not going to cause you to compromise. He's not going to push you past your limits. He's not going to awaken love before it's time. And that is something that I fully knew that I wasn't going to let go of. And, not going to lie, I definitely was not perfect. I compromised in a lot of areas with different people, and I was not a fan of that. That was definitely not my goal. But sometimes I just let things get in the way. And in that, whether it was insecurities or just people in general that ended up getting in my head, I very much realized later on, let me do this real quick. I very much realized later on and realized the hard way that, again, the person that loves me for who I am is not going to make me compromise. So if I had one guy after college, actually. It was a friend of ours, a friend of a friend, mutual friend, and he was very much like trying to pull me away from like my family and stuff. He was an only child, and so I think he like the idea of having a really close family, and Hispanics and stuff, like Hispanic culture is like very close in general, and then plus my family is just crazy. So we had I was just always with my family, and when I pictured being with somebody, I pictured somebody who would be able to hang with my crazy family, and if they couldn't, then they weren't the one. And Ryan will even tell you to this day, as much as he loves my family, they're pretty crazy. And it's been a roller coaster of stuff with, different things, but just in the family dynamic that we have, we were very close. We were going to the movies every week at the time, and we were doing like a ton of stuff together, and I was just always with my family. And another thing that like for me, like I wasn't sleeping with anybody, I wasn't doing anything. So like being around my parents with my boyfriend or guy I was dating or whatever was not weird to me, because I wasn't trying to hide anything. Like I wanted him to get to know my family, because again, if this was somebody that could be a potential future husband, future spouse and stuff, he's gonna have to get along with my family. So we were trying to figure out different things, and I was 22 at the time, 23 maybe, and he was very much like, you're an adult. Why do you have to listen to your parents? Why do you this? Why do you that? And I was like, I don't have to listen to my parents because I'm an adult, but I have respect for my parents. So if they really don't want me out till like 2 a.m, I'm probably not going to do it. And it was just this thing of like, yeah, my parents didn't really have authority over me anymore, but I honestly respected my parents, and I liked spending time with my parents, and I liked hanging out with them and different things. And so I was just like baffled by certain situations or certain things that would come up with this guy, and he just like didn't get it. And he was like, I really like you. He's like, but I hate how involved like your parents are. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's just how things are. And for him, he was just like, yeah, I just can't do it anymore. And he was telling me how his friends told him that that's actually like really bad. And his friends were pastors, and, they were like youth pastors and all in Bible college and all this stuff. And they said that that's like, that's not honoring of the Lord to have to be like told what to do by your parents and stuff. And I was like, just so confused. I was like, how does this make sense? Like, nothing he was saying was making sense to me, but to each their own. And obviously I didn't marry him, and I wasn't with him, but it was situations like that I knew that I just had to walk away from. And even in that, like with him specifically, it was a thing of like waiting for marriage, yes, but also wanting to do everything under the sun but actually have sex. And I, at the time, I still hadn't even had my first kiss. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm good. I actually don't want to do that. And he was really bothered by it. And so even like in that, like you can have really strong, godly guys who are in the church and this and that, but they'll try to get you to compromise. And I don't know if that's a thing of just being insecure or them needing to die more to their flesh or whatever if they're dealing with stuff. But I just knew that that wasn't for me. And if I'm being honest, 90% of the time, each one of those guys who tried to get me to compromise had a pornography addiction. And I'm not saying that people can't be serving the Lord and dealing with stuff. Like, you know, I've seen it, but I will tell you this, there's always something more that is going on when stuff like that happens. And again, to young women, if you have somebody like that who is trying to get you to compromise, even after you've dated for a long time or this or that or blah, 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 run, because it is not going to get better. And those things just come up. And it is very sad to see situations like that happen. And I know that that's why, you know, people are like, oh yeah, that's why a lot of young Christians get married so soon and stuff. It's honestly like beneficial to be married sooner. I know it was for Ryan and I, because as soon as you get like engaged and stuff, or you just want to be together, like the temptation ends up being really real. And you know, sometimes people fall under it, and sometimes there are people who just are able to withstand. And you know, bravo to those people who have more self-discipline and all that and have stronger boundaries. But sometimes people don't, and I think that that's okay. And I think when you find the person that you're going to marry and you want to be with them, it's exciting. And it's exciting to picture your life with them. And I kid you not, after Ryan and I got married, one of the best things was that we didn't have to leave anymore. We didn't have to have a curfew. We didn't have to, you know, have a certain point where we're like, okay, it's getting late, like we gotta go. We were just like, okay, now we get a forever sleepover and nobody has to leave anymore, and we're okay, you know? So I would just say that, again, if you have somebody who's coming at you and trying to get you to compromise and boundaries or different things, run, because they're definitely not it.
No cap though, run for your life.
Wise words from a wise man. But all that to say, I have definitely had my share of run-ins with different guys. And I think that being a woman, it is very hard to determine or decipher certain things. And when you hear somebody telling you one thing, but their actions are showing another, it's a very clear sign that they do not have your best interests at heart. So with now having a daughter, these are the things that I think of how do we protect her from, you know, a wolf in sheep's clothing? How do I protect her from the men that'll come and try to, you know, woo her or try to pretend that they're godly men, but they're dealing with crazy things and stuff. And again, it's not a thing to cast judgment on people. I'm not judging anybody if they struggle with stuff. But I also know that I have fought hard personally to come out of pornography addictions and, you know, masturbation and different things like that. And I know that before I even met Ryan, that is not something that I wanted to have be a part of my marriage on either one of our ends. And so we had a lot of conversations about that before we even started dating. And it was really good for us to be open and communicate. But I also knew that if he was struggling with that, that was something that I couldn't help him with, especially while dating. And that was something that he was going to need to figure out on his own before we could even, you know, think about a relationship and stuff. And thankfully, the Lord had already dealt with him on those things. And he had accountability partners and, you know, people to just kind of, you know, be there for him if he was struggling or different things. And I was very grateful for it. that the past of that has not affected our marriage and our intimacy and our, relationship, because those things can. I think a lot of people try to pretend like it doesn't, but it really does. And you could look at studies, different things, I'm not going to go into that whole thing, but I really do believe that what you let into your eyes and your ears affects your heart and affects your relationship to others. And it can be really, really hard to get out of something like that. But I also know that the Lord is so gracious and so kind. And even if people slip up, that he is able to come in and to help and to, give grace and not cast stones and just be there. But again, all that to say that as somebody who has gone through that and gone through that with other, boyfriends and such, that is not something that I want for my daughter. In my mind, I'm already thinking ahead. How do we have these conversations? How do we talk about these things? What do I protect her from? What do I this? What do I that? And it's really hard to think of certain things, to think of, situations, or, if something were to happen, what do I do then? How do I approach it? And again, obviously I know that things happen to boys and girls, but I do know that there's a greater attack on women, especially those who are trying to live godly lives and waiting, because there's something so sacred in it. There's something so sacred and beautiful to knowing that you're the only person who's been intimate with your spouse. To knowing that the bond that you share with somebody like that when you've come into a covenant marriage, that nobody else can have that. And again, people say people cheat and what about this and what about that and blah, blah, blah. And even Christians and all of that. And yes, and I can't speak for other people, but I do know that being somebody who waited for marriage, being somebody who's with somebody who waited for marriage, it is one of the most beautiful things, and it has created such a bond between us, and we have such a trust for each other, and it's just beautiful. And knowing that I'm the only person that knows my husband like that is such a gift, and that's why the Lord wanted it to be specifically for marriage between a man and a woman. And when you come into that covenant, there's just nothing like it. And so it's like we think about these things, and I want to instill that in my children. Obviously in my son, we would love for him to wait. We would love for our daughter to wait. But we also know that there's grace if things happen. And, it's not an excuse. But I also just know that there are certain things that we're not going to do with our kids. And part of that being, I've talked about this before. We've talked about it on one of the first episodes that we had. Our children, the Clunk children, will not be doing sleepovers. They will not be spending the night at people's houses, even for people that we trust, because you don't know who's going to come over. You don't know what's going on in somebody else's house. You don't know the different things. And it's not to say that people are bad. I'm not saying that at all. But statistics have shown that the likelihood of something happening for children in other people's homes is very high. And obviously I don't have those statistics off the top of my head, and I probably should, but it is very, very, very high. And even growing up, I wasn't allowed to have sleepovers at people's houses. And there were a few people that we did, and thank God there was nothing crazy that happened and stuff, and we were protected. We had good, godly Christian friends and people that we stayed with. But on top of that, you just never know what's going to happen. And I think that as parents, we are entrusted to be mindful of our children and who they're around and what's going on. And when they're in somebody else's house and they're staying the night, you don't have that. And some people say that I'm controlling or a helicopter parent or whatever. That's just a boundary that we have. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But that's just something that we're doing for our family. And I've talked about it before, that there was a time where, a situation where let me say it like this, that I wanted to spend the night at somebody's house. My parents said no. And my mom felt bad for me, and she was trying to convince my dad, all of her friends are gonna go, just let her go. And my dad said, I don't feel good about it. And it was people that we've known, people that spent the night at their house beforehand. But this time he said, I feel in my spirit she shouldn't go. And come to find out afterwards, at that sleepover, that there was another person who came by, because the person that I was going to spend the night with had a sibling, and that sibling had friends come over, and the siblings' friends were older, and everybody who spent the night got molested that night by the friends of the sibling. And we found that out later on, obviously, because there was a whole thing. But it was situations like that I was very grateful that, you know, even in certain cases, there sometimes would be okay to spend the night at somebody's house or to, you know, hang out longer, late nights, whatever and stuff. I'm still very grateful that I had parents who were listening to the Holy Spirit and who prayed. And, you know, it's just like David in the Bible. Like, he would go and inquire before he went into war or into battle, because each battle was different. And he was not to go into the battles the same. And I think because of that, we have that, you know, that example that, like, even if one time you feel okay about your kids spending the night, and then another time you're like, hey, actually, maybe not. It's okay to do that. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to do things differently. But the thing about it wasn't just my parents being mean and saying, no, you're not spending the night because I said so. It was hey, prayed about it, or I'm feeling in my spirit like it's a no tonight. And I'm sorry. I know that you want to hang out with your friends, but maybe we could do something another time. Or maybe you could go hang out over there tomorrow during the day. Something. And, you know, I'm very grateful that I had parents who did that and who had those conversations with us and explained to us and talked to us about it, because it helped me understand that my parents aren't being evil. They're not the bad guys. They love me. They're trying to protect me. And in that case, they did. And so we live in a very, very crazy world. And, you know, just even in the same sense of, like, you could be the best driver and, you know, somebody else is not, or somebody else is drinking and driving, and they come and they hit you while you're driving. You did everything right. And some people say, oh yeah, wrong place, wrong time. We live in a fallen world, and you obviously can't control what other people do, but you can be in control of you and your situation. And even in that, I don't know what the situation would be. I don't know the purpose of it. I don't know anything, but I do know that you're probably in a better situation if you're a good driver, you're following the law, not drinking and driving, and you get hit by a drunk driver, versus you also being a drunk driver and then getting hit by a drunk driver. You know, they're just recipes for disaster. But that is how I see things, and that's how me and my husband see things, that, you know, we can't control other people, but we can control what happens with our children. We can control what happens in our house. And that's why one of my favorite things when people come over is the first response is usually, oh my gosh, it's so peaceful. Oh my gosh, your house is so, like, peaceful. And that is something that we really have tried to cultivate as a couple, as a family. Because the atmosphere that you set in your home and for your children is, I don't want to say detrimental, but it's crucial into how you operate, into how things operate, into how they operate. And yeah, we really try to steward that well, because again, when people walk through our door, we want them to be at home. We want them to feel at home, but we also want them to feel the presence of the Lord, because that is our goal, is to emulate the Lord. Our goal is to emulate his love and his love for people. And we can't do that if we have a chaotic environment. And yeah, so I have been in my head with a lot of these things, and I have to take a lot of these things to the Lord, praying about baby number 2 and all of that. And I know that it's, you know, wild to think all these crazy things. But I think you kind of have to when you have kids. And whether they're here, whether they're coming, whether, you're even married or thinking about kids, or whether you're waiting, or whatever the case may be, it's definitely it needs to be something that's on the forefront of your mind. And I think that obviously plans change, and you could set things up and things go completely different than how you plan. And, the Lord's plans are always different than our own. But I think that you have to sort of even set up a flexible game plan, because if you're not prepared for these things, they're going to come and hit you. And then, what do you do? What do you do? And I just think that when it comes to our kids and this next generation, we need to do better. We really do. And in order to do that, we have to start making changes now. I know that for Ryan and I, before we even got married, we knew that we didn't want our kids to say things like shut up or stupid or idiot. And so we had to make the adjustment, even joking, that we don't call each other that. If I'm in the middle of a discussion with my husband, I don't say you're being an idiot. I don't tell him, oh, that's stupid, or your idea was dumb. Because I don't want my kids talking like that. And so if that's a part of who we are and in how we talk to on a daily basis, that's going to be something that our kids will follow. And so we had to make those changes even before we started dating, even just as friends, even just joking, that we wouldn't call each other names or make jokes or be, sarcastic or whatever the case may be. And I think it's really done us a lot of good. Even with our son, some people say that it's over the top or whatnot, but we don't even tell each other, or we don't even tell our son now. We don't tell him no. And I know a lot of parents are going to say, oh, that's gentle parenting, this and that. No, it's not that we don't correct him, but we don't tell him no. I don't yell at him, no, don't do that, or no this, or no that. And again, some people may see that as wrong or whatever. We don't tell him that, but we tell him, no, thank you. Or say, hey, no, thanks. Let's do something else. No, thanks. And even in that, we're still correcting, we're still addressing, but it's a lot kinder. It's a lot less harsh on him. And it's not going to be this thing that overwhelms his nervous system because he's getting yelled at from across the room. And again, this is not a thing. I'm not judging people or parents. If that's what you do, that doesn't matter to me. I'm not telling anybody how to parent, but for our house, this is what we do. And even in that, our son still just one day, I think he had just turned a year old, and he starts going around and I'm like, can you do this? And he goes, no, all happy. I'm like, Bubbies, can you do this? And he goes, no. Did you do this? No. And I'm like, where did you even learn that from? Because we're not telling him no. He's not around people telling him no. But somehow he learned how to say it. And so it just really cracks me up that, even in that, you can do all the things right. You can try to adjust and adapt and try to do things different with your kids, and they still do certain things. And it's not bad, but that's just something that we have for our kids, that we don't like saying no, and we like saying no, thank you. And we like being kinder about that stuff, because again, it's not a thing of trying to get my son in trouble or yell at him or punish him. It's, hey, we're recognizing this, and we're going to adjust, and we're going to stop what we're doing, and we're going to do something different, and we're going to redirect. And it's just wild. But yeah, so we have a lot to navigate, but in that, it's just a thing of even creating certain habits now that will affect our kids in the future. And I don't know if my daughter's going to come out and she's going to be the one to start yelling no at me all the time. But I know that my approach with her is going to be the same with our son, that, we're going to tell her, hey, no, thank you. No, thanks. We're going to do something else. And that's just how we do it. And so I know that this has been a very different podcast. And if you've been around long enough, you know that, this is not the typical podcast topic to talk about, but I do think that it's important, and I think part of it being with me preparing mentally, emotionally, physically for this new baby coming, there are so many things that the Lord is already putting on my heart that I am going to have to adjust with my daughter that has been different than it's been with my son. And I'm nervous, but I'm excited at the same time that the Lord has entrusted us with a little girl. And as terrified as I am to have a little girl, I know that I'm not doing this alone. You know, I have an amazing husband who's able to partner with me, and he's also able to partner with me and partner with the Lord on what we need to do for our kids and for our daughter. And I know that, you know, I had an amazing dad growing up, but I also know that my daughter has an amazing father who is going to be present. And, you know, I'm praying that because we've done things differently, she won't go through a lot of the things that I went through. And I'm praying that that would be the case. And we're just going to take it one day at a time. So as we enter, well, I'm already in the 3rd trimester. As we get closer to our due date, which may be sooner than we expect, be praying for us. It's because it's going to be a wild ride. And I have started nesting already, and I am trying not to panic because I feel a little more prepared and then not prepared at all. So it's going to be a fun ride. And as we get closer, we will keep you guys updated. And yeah, make sure to follow us on social media. If you have a story that you would like to share or you want to be featured on the podcast, please email me. I'll drop the email below. And thank you guys for watching and for being here. You know, we had a wild ride this past year, and starting this podcast was definitely nothing like I expected. But I'm thankful for everybody who has been here, new followers, old followers. And I'm thankful for the journey that we've been on. And I know that the Lord put this on my heart to, you know, connect with other mothers and to connect a community of moms or moms to be or women who want to be moms one day. And I don't take that lightly. And during this time of these episodes and, you know, even the time that I took off to take a break over the holidays and such, it was wild thinking of all the things and, you know, going through my own stuff, but thinking about the moms who may have been on their own this Christmas season and these holidays. And it just breaks my heart. Breaks my heart because I know that that's not how things are meant to be. And so I pray that if you are watching this podcast, that you know that you are not alone wherever you are in your motherhood journey, and know that we're always here for you and the Lord is always there for you. And I pray that you stick around. And we have some exciting guests that are going to be coming on in future episodes, and I can't wait to share more details with you. But yeah, it's going to be good. And the Lord is definitely doing something in moms and in motherhood. And I feel like even in just this new year, there's something coming for moms, and it's going to be really good. So stay tuned, and we will see you next time here in the Nursing Mothers Room. Here's my crazy little setup. But for those of you who stuck around for this episode, here is, oh, I'm dropping stuff. There's a little Miffy. And so after she dries, we'll seal her, or paint her, and then seal her in resin, and then ship her off.